Hey everybody, it's the Fricken Film Critic here, and for those of you wondering where I've been for the past few weeks, wonder no more. Well, I've seen a lot of movies over the past few days, and I've decided that instead of reviewing each one of them individually and spending a lot of time into each review and going like, edit this here and whatnot, I decided I'd just make 3 mini reviews compiled into one video. Just for you guys. Because you guys are the best. You guys are really cool. But, you're not cool enough for me to want to spend so much time to make an individual review for each one. So, don't get ahead of yourselves, you guys, you're not that great. So let's start with the big one, The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm not going to waste my time describing the premise of Spider-Man because if you don't know the premise by now, then you are the definition of a recluse. And yes, I use the word recluse to sound smarter. Anyway, this is the much talked about Spider-Man reboot from director Mark Webb. Yes, I could make a pun there because his last name is Webb, but then I'd be the millionth person to do it, am I right? Am I right? This guy gets it. He recently directed 500 Days of Summer and cast Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker / Spider-Man. Except this time, Peter Parker is not fighting the Green Goblin, he's fighting Dr. Kirk Connors, a scientist who longs to have his arm again after having lost it many years ago, who performs an experiment in an attempt to restore his lost arm. Of course, the experiment goes wrong and it turns him into a big bad lizard who wants to make the world as strong as he is. Talk about that later. Peter is also, instead of chasing Mary Jane, chasing after Gwen Stacy, who is played by the always lovely Emma Stone, who I would very much like to. I thought a lot more of this movie worked than didn't. For example, the relationship between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker is very realistic and very intimate. The intimacy allowed for me to become more invested in their relationship and the film itself. The film isn't like most of the superhero movies that came out recently, and by that I mean most of the Marvel movies. It's story before spectacle here, and it works to this film's advantage, for the most part. There are a lot of different characters introduced, and for the 2.5-hour runtime that this movie has, you'd think that a lot of them would be more developed. For example, the Rhys Ifans character who plays the big bad lizard scientist Dr. Kirk Connors. I never really understood his motivation for wanting to turn the rest of the world into people like him. It's never really made clear, and when he ends up doing it, it seems very sporadic and unnatural. The film also felt very full of itself. You could tell that with each shot the director was probably saying to himself, oh yeah, this one here is gonna have a lot of meaning. And there's a lot of depth here. Oh, cue indie rock song from some band that you've never heard of. Alright, great. Oh, perfect. It's deep. It's really dark. It's deep. It got really annoying after a while. But overall, the film is really enjoyable to watch. The characters are interesting. The visuals themselves are really cool to look at. So, you know what? Go ahead, have a blast. It's not really all that great, but it's not really bad either, so I enjoyed it. I give The Amazing Spider-Man 3.5 out of 5 stars. Up next, Ted. This movie's really great. It's a lot of fun to watch, and it's really fucking funny. It starts with a lonely 9-year-old Mark Wahlberg who wishes for his teddy bear to come to life, and it does. 20-something years later, he's still living with his teddy bear, and they now consistently smoke pot and watch Flash Gordon. Mark Wahlberg's character is dating Mila Kunis' character when he realizes that it might be time to finally grow up and let go of Ted. That's kind of what the movie focuses on, that and his struggle to let go. And it's within that relationship where most of the jokes derive from in Ted. And that's because even though Ted is a motion-captured teddy bear, he feels like a real-life person. He's surprisingly well-developed as a character, and the relationship between him and Mark Wahlberg allows for some really great camaraderie and a really entertaining film. The chemistry between Wahlberg and Ted on screen gave the movie a lot more heart than I expected it to, making it one of the funnier and more heartfelt movies I've seen this year. So, that's as solid a recommendation I can give. I'm going to give Ted 4 out of 5 stars. Maybe that one was slightly more solid. And lastly, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. There are 21 days to the end of the world in this heartfelt and occasionally disjointed dramedy. Steve Carell plays Dodge, a man whose wife literally runs out on him upon finding out that the world is going to end soon. This kind of encourages him to live out the rest of his days by going on a road trip with his neighbor Penny, played by Keira Knightley, to find the one who got away. The film drew a lot more attention to the relationship between Carell and Knightley as opposed to the impending apocalypse, which kind of made the film a lot more of a simple romantic comedy as opposed to, a movie about the apocalypse. But you know what? I was okay with that. Because the relationship between the two of them actually felt real, at least for me. I know it was a problem for some people, but I saw the chemistry between the two leads. If there was anything that the film struggled with, it was the fact that it never really seemed to know what kind of movie it wanted to be, because it would occasionally go from super goofy to super dark in a matter of seconds, and occasionally throw in scenes that were used to simply give a punchline, and it would really put the movie to a halt. It was distracting at times, but it never really impeded the film's actual message from being conveyed. That message being, there is no such thing as not enough time. Be sure to use as much time as you can with the ones that you love or doing something that you love. I kind of love this movie, and I especially love the relationship between Knightley and Carell because you know, it was really sweet. I thought it was enjoyable from beginning to end, and I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. So those are my 3 little reviews. I'll be back to making normal reviews next week with, that's right, The Dark Knight Rises. Oh my god, I just came in my pants. I'm freaking awesome.